Hi there. I'm here because I'm going to build a hexagonal gaming table, and I've picked hexagonal because we usually have 4 to 6 players, so I wanted to have one side for each of the 6 players. So I've started with this pine plywood. I picked pine because I've always also picked other pine pieces to put in this gaming table, and I wanted to stain the same color. So I started with this plywood, and I cut a hexagonal piece out of this plywood, as you can see. Each side is 2 feet, and corner to corner is about 4 feet. Now it looks a little small, but then we're going to extend that with the trim pieces, which are made out of pine, and they'll come out about another 6.5 to 7 inches. So that's my starting piece. We're going to put 2x4s in a radial direction out from the 6 directions on the hex. This will provide support, and it'll have the added benefit that these 2x4s will act as the bases for our legs. So for the first 2x4, we're going to go straight across, and this is going to come out jut out on both ends, and the other ones we're going to build in and then nail to or screw to this 2x4 in the middle. Now we're going to measure the distance out from the edge that we need to go. So basically we want our trim piece to hang out about 6 inches and then maybe an inch. So I have 1x8 trim, which I'll show you here. So this 1x8 trim will go on the edge like that, and this will, about an inch will hang over the plywood to cover the edge, and about another 6 inches will go here. So if I measure the width of this, we've got just under 6.25 inches, or just under 7.25 inches. So with this board, we now want to, this out of the way, we now want to have this board to go out far enough to have this rest on. But also we need to account for the space of the other trim board. So along the edges here, it's going to be this 1x4. And so the thickness of this board is 3/4 of an inch. So we'll need to come back in 3/4 of an inch on that board. So basically, if we want to go out 6 inches here, I did a little bit of trigonometry. We have a 30-degree angle from here to here, and that works out to 6.92 inches. Doesn't matter if this is perfect, because when we build the board on top, it's going to cover over this, and we're going to measure that to fit, and we're going to have a 1-inch hangover. And if you want to have a little bit more than 1 inch, that's fine. So I've measured it for a 6 inch, so I'm going to have about almost 1.25 inch hangover, which will give me a little bit more flexibility. Okay, here's a broader shot of our hex with the 2x4 going straight across here, and then we can see the radial directions we're going to build out from. Okay, I've now cut one end of this 2x4, so now I'm going to cut a peak here. And basically I've setting my chop saw here at 30 degrees because that's the angle I need to make this parallel with the hexagon board, and so the side piece fits on. So I'm going to chop one side. You could flip it over, but then I can't see my mark. So I'm going to flip it around this way and cut this out. This will be my centerboard piece. So let's put this down. You can see I now have my baseboard. So I measured, so it worked out that this came out to about 6 inches, bang on, and that gives me a 5 1/4 clearance here. Okay, I'm now going to screw this board in. I've measured off 1 inch lines, 1 inch from the edge of the board here, because I'm going to put my screws in here, and that way the top board is going to cover those screws. I'm going to start by putting in some glue on the baseboard. So I checked underneath the board here to make sure that board's nice and snug. I may put a center screw in here, but we'll do that later. So I'm going to add the glue. Center these boards up. Get them 6 inches out from the edge. So that's 6 to 8. Looks pretty good. 2 to 8, I should say. Get it close to center as I can. Doesn't need to be perfect. Do the same on the other side. Good. So now I'm going to put a couple of 2 1.5 inch screws to go through the 1/2 inch plywood in here into the 2x4. Nice speed. Side. Well, that's our baseboard installed. So now we're going to install other radial boards. Go from there. But we're going to have to install those even here. We may put a center screw in there. Hold that in place, but we're going to see how good it is after I install the other boards, whether I need one or not. Okay, here we are with it flipped over. I'm going to put a center point in here. So that measures, well, it measures almost 5 feet bang on. So that's 2 1/2. Maybe the center this way, 1 3/4. Right here. Now we're going to come out from there. That's about 2 feet out, which makes sense. So we're going to be going 2 feet 6 inches out. So this leftover piece should be good for that. And look at that. I think we can use the cut that we already did. So let's say that's nice and flush. Line up with here. It's going to go about that angle. There we go. That's in there. I'm going going to lift this up, so I'll give you my measurements here. So I'm going to go 6 inches out. I'm going to take that one up where I got it measured. And hopefully I'll get it back on the same hole later when So let's mark the center point. Right there, about the 1 3/4 mark. Right here. So there's our cut point. Cut one piece right here, 30-degree angle. We'll do about a 30-degree angle here. Line up the same hole again. I'm going to put that in. Actually, wait. Now we're going to put some glue down again before we put that in permanently. We have a glue line that's going to go from here to that corner. So here we go. Voila. So that's one screw. I don't know if we need another one in there. That's pretty soft, solid in there. So we're going to put 2 of our 1.5-inch screws in place. I didn't measure the 1 inch yet, though. I'll do that just for this time. So we're going to measure inch in, inch in, inch in, inch in. And this is going to once again show where we're going to, where the top piece is going to cover this over, hopefully. Alright, you can see better where we're going to put our screws. So I'm going to put one here. Further. Now I'm putting these sort of close to the edge of the 2x4. Not too close, but that way they'll be out of the way, because when I put the piece that's going to go on here, the top piece, it's going to go here, but it's going to go about this far. I'm going to put some nails or screws to put that in place. So there's going to be one right in the corner there. I don't want it to be hitting that screw. Just want to show you this one thing here. With my new two boards in, I pushed them up against the wall there, and you can see that they fit sort of nice and flush with the trim board that's going to go on there. That's a quick check to make sure you're doing it correctly. Okay, I wanted to show you this next little piece here before I do the rest of them. This one's going to be a bit different. We're going to have to cut in two pieces, 2/8 here to fit into this piece there. So once again, I'm going to draw a center line on this. Maybe I'll use the other side. Doesn't matter, I guess. So I'm going to do the center line first. So there's our center line. Let's make it a bit darker. We're going to cut this to match near that middle. So we have lots of 30-degree angles here. So if you want to check the angle, that's straight on. If you rotate it half a notch, that's 30 degrees. And I know that because this hex is 6 60-degree angles. So this from here over to here is 60 degrees. This to here is 30. So there's a 30-degree angle. So we're actually going to see how it fits. And then we're going to adjust it as needed. Look at that. That's a nice fit. So that's one side done. Just checking here to see which one fits better or flatter against the board. Actually, that's nice and snug there, so I don't have to screw that in place to hold it up. So I'm just going to lift this and do my measurement here. Let's do 6 inches. Okay, there we are. We're zoomed in. So I did those two 30-degree cuts, and it's a fairly nice fit. And my line's almost perfectly lined up. It's probably off by a couple millimeters, but that doesn't matter too much. So I'm going to put a screw to hold that in place somehow. Didn't figure that out yet. I'm going to put a screw in here or a screw in here. I think I'm going to try to put a screw in from the top here. Okay, I've now cut my 6 spacer pieces, basically like these. I've cut them from my old plywood here. But I stayed on the corner edge piece so you don't avoid this, keep the center piece intact, because we're going to use that again later. So now you can see that these 6 pieces, I'm just going to glue them with a couple of dabs of glue on each of the 6 extensions here, and that's going to make this surface level with this one, so that when we put the piece on top here, it's going to sit flat. That's the plan. Now this will be, it only needs a couple dabs of glue because this will be nailed down with our edge piece later on. I've now got all the sort of riser pieces on top to make it level. So this means that when I put the edge piece on, that's going to sit nice and level. And so next step is I'm going to put my side pieces on. So these are my 1x4s. I cut them again to a 30-degree angle here to match that fit there. And I'm going to then screw these on here, and I'm going to use this to level them up to the right height. So this is not cut to perfect size yet, it's just close. So I'll zoom in to show you. So now we're going to put this here, and you see when this forms up, it forms right along this line here. I'm going to drill a couple of pilot holes for that. So I'll get that as level as I can. It's actually going to be a bit up. I'm going to bring this one out, bring that up. That's the height we want it. I'll put a couple pilot holes in here. Okay. So I've now drilled pilot holes in this board. I'm just going to start a couple screws off. Maybe that one high speed. So I'm going to carefully line this piece up against the top board. That one in so far, and I'm going to line up the other one. There we go. There's our first sideboard. Now we're going to cut the rest of the boards and fit them in end to end. Okay, I'm now done all the 1x4 edge pieces. I just put two 2-inch screws in each side here. Did a little bit of planing to get these level here. I got them as level as possible as I could with the table, so hopefully the other pieces will go on well. So next step is I'm going to put the 1x8s. They actually measure about 1x7 1/4 along the edges like that. And we're going to cut those once again at a 30-degree angle, and hopefully they'll meet up well. And these will cover the screw holes that I made to put this into the plywood into the 2x4s. So we'll cut those pieces next, and then we'll be near done. Okay, I'm working on putting the trim pieces on. And, when I cut these on, they often don't give the exact fit here. So what I do is I adjust the chop saw by 1/2 degree or 1 degree, and then I recut it until I get as close as possible to a fit here in the seams, and then I sand it a bit to try to get the seam a bit tighter. That's usually the best way. Then I glue it around the edges and nail it in place, and I'll sink the nails a little bit later and fill them with putty. After I nail in each piece, lift it up underneath, and I'll put a few screws into the bottom. Use 1 1/4 inch screw. Good idea to do this in Okay, I've now completed the trim pieces, and they went out all right. I had to trim a few times to get it to a nice fit, but it worked out okay. I sub-sunk the nail holes, so we'll fill those later after I do my first round of sanding. Now, next I'm going to cut the cup holes. So I got these on Amazon for about $10 for 4, so I bought 6 of these. And now we're going to drill holes to put those in there. So I found a top from a container that was about the right size for my inner hole. So I figured out I wanted it 2 inches from the corner and about 1/4 of an inch from the side. So I'm going to measure that so that it clears the 2x4 underneath, and it doesn't hit this this 1x4 here. Doesn't have to be perfect, but get as good as we can get it. There we go. So I'm going to mark that out with a pencil. I'm going to cut a starter hole to put my jigsaw in. So I'll start with this. Now I'm going to do my jigsaw. I'm going to follow that hole around, that line around. And there's our piece in. Get that a little bit of a tight fit so it'll hold in there nice and snug when she's in there. That's done. Now we do the other 4. Next I'm going to cut out the spot to put little pieces. And what I'm going to do is I've measured 2 templates just to see how they look. I went for a 4x6 or maybe a 3.5x5. And after looking at it, I think the 4x6 is a better size. Now I'm going to put it slightly off center. I'm not going to put it right center like I probably originally thought. Okay, we've now drilled all the holes. The rectangular holes, I used just a jigsaw, a little drill to start it off, and then a jigsaw. It worked out quite well. I then went on to do the sanding. I was pretty pleased with that. I just used a $50 sander electric sander I bought at Home Depot. I used just one of these little thingamajiggies here to do a straight inside the holes, and some hand sander. Before I did the sanding, when I put the top pieces on, I gave a little bit of overlap so then I could get it nice and smooth. So I used a planer to take off a level to get it close, and then I finished it off with sanding. Next step now is to fill the holes with putty, and I'm going to try this time to use a sawdust glue mix to fill these holes, with the hopes that when I stain it, it'll be a better match than just using a different colored putty. Okay, I've finished all the sanding, and I've put a coat of conditioner on, which I did about 20 minutes ago. Basically, condition is supposed to make the stain go on easier, so that prepares the wood. And I'm going to I bought a can of gel. It's supposed to cover 50 square feet, so it should be just enough. Went with a aged oak color, but I'm going to put it on a little bit light because I don't want it too dark, so I'm going to try to put it on thinly. And I'm going to use a cloth to put that on. I used a brush just to put the conditioner on, which is very like a liquid. And then after that, I'm going to put urethane on to a couple of coats of this polyurethane to protect it. So away we go. Okay, I've now finished the table, and I've now put the underplates on the padding where the game pieces are going to go here. So what I did is I used some leftover sort of press board here that I had, and I cut out a 5x8 to cover the 4x6 hole, and then I used the felt that I picked up to create an in lining for the insert for the table itself, for the game piece spot. So as you can see, when we look at the spot where the game pieces are, we get quite a nice look with the blue felt bottom and the surrounding piece. So I was quite happy with that way that worked out. So what I did is I cut the piece out to fit. I drew a 4x6 where the hole was, and then I just simply put some screws a little bit on the edge of the holes, screwed one screw in place with the tarp, pulled it tight, and screwed it in tight as I pulled it tight, and then I'm going to cut the edges off, and that's how that'll work. Okay, I've completed putting the underlays on for the piece holders. Next step now is I'm going to put the legs on. So I picked these up at IKEA for about $5 each, so it's a good price, 6 of them for $5 each, $30. And I designed this radial 2x4s here so I could just mount the legs on each one of these 2x4s. So I'll probably put a nut just a bit in from the edge. Plywood there is a good place, so that shouldn't be too bad. 5 screws, away we go. One point is, that's a little bit bigger than the 2x4, but I still think I can get the 5 screws in. It's a bit tight fit, but not too bad. It does make me think that I was originally thinking of using 2x3s. I'm glad I used the 2x4s because that gives a better base for the legs. Okay, the table's all finished. Legs are on, settings are in. So you can play on it just like this if you want, with the about 1-inch inset here. But what I did is I took the other piece of the plywood and I made an insert for it, which fits in here quite handily to get a level plane area and a nice soft surface to hold pieces in place. And I basically cut that to a close fit. Then I used a sander to shiv it down to get a nice snug fit, to get it a good fit. And there we have it. First game is tonight.